I thank you everybody for joining. The reason I wanted to put this together is because it's not a surprise to anybody in this event or in the world that engineering is a very male-dominated field. Uh, just like others, for example, my friend and colleague Jennifer is here from the aviation industry. She can tell you girls that that's also a very male dominated field. Where I was going to school. Gidra was going to school with me, but we were in a class that
for others, especially since they did not see last night's training, to maybe put down put in the chat.
There's a lot of background noise.
Your biggest takeaway.
I don't know.
One more, type something.
And if it happens to be about day 2.
Okay. All right. So what I was saying is we were going to school and there were a lot of men in the class and only 1 or 2 women, right, Gildra?
Right.
So if we ask our friend Jennifer in the aviation field, I'm pretty sure it was pretty much the same. And I don't know, I was personally hoping when you get to the workforce, things were gonna be a little bit different, but not really. I've been in companies in my career where I'm the only woman. Like it's a whole lot of men and I'm the only woman. Can anybody here, relate with that? Anybody? So being the only woman has its advantages, but it also has its challenges and its difficulties. At least in my experience, it's been more difficult for me, at least, to advance if I compare myself to my male counterparts. So I say these remarkable women who have made it and be successful despite the fact that we are women, right? And despite the fact that it's a very male-dominated field. So I say, what can we learn from them? What have they done that the rest of us don't know about? So that's why I put this panel together, and now I'll give you ladies a chance to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit of who you are, and then we'll go on with the panel. So let's start with Monica. Can you introduce yourself?
Well, thank you. First of all, thank you so much for the invite. It's been fantastic to be able to participate here. I love these forums in the sense that, you share the knowledge, and you were at one point starting a career and you wish you could have had a lot of more coaching. So I think that's a fantastic thing. Good job, Maria, right? In general terms, I can tell you my background. Back in years ago, I won't date myself, right, Marelis? But let's just say I have adult children, so that was a while ago. But I'm currently at DB Schenker. I'm the VP for Business Development and Customer Management for Region Americas, under contract logistics, which is more of the warehousing side of the general supply chain. My career started many moons ago, where basically around 24 years ago, where I started as a colleague of mine from college, Alicia Mendoza, if you remember her, Marelis. She called me in and she says, "Hey, I need you." She was working at a company called AEI, now later purchased by DHL. And she says to me, "I need you in here." And I said, "For what?" And she says, "Well, I work for this freight forwarder, and I needed an operations manager." And I said, "Okay, operations for what? What exactly would we be doing?" I said, well, this is a freight forwarder, so we're moving air freight. And I said, "Girl, I don't know how to do that." And long story short, that's where I started my logistics supply chain career, and I've not gone out of it since then. Long history of different functions throughout my career, and yes, it's pretty male dominated, particularly back then when I started. But I can tell you, one boss once told me, "You need to consider yourself as an asset to a company." And that kind of sounded weird at the beginning, but basically he said, "You're a woman, you're smart, you fix things as an engineer, you'll find your way out of things. And this is probably what you're going to be known for. Long story short, that's what I've been known for. So this is why they always throw me in with the complexity of programs or issues. And I seem to find my way through it, but definitely not without working with a network, right? Working with not only men and women, but also figuring it out in different dimensions of different geographies, different languages, different everything. But this is, I think, what ultimately has given us the power to really go forward and continue to move forward, is that engineering background that really helps you kind of devise your way through many, many things. So again, I wouldn't put anything back. Of course, I would have done certain things differently, but certainly has been great career move for me to come into the logistics realm.
Thank you, Monica, for that wonderful start of this panel. So now, Adriana, tell us a little bit about who you are.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you again also for the invitation. I'm actually calling from Dallas, Texas, but as I was mentioning earlier, you know, Miami at one point was my home. So let's see, I work for the Boeing company. I got my bachelor's in industrial engineering from the University of Missouri in Columbia. And I actually got hired by McDonnell Douglas, now Boeing, right out of college. And McDonnell Douglas had their headquarters on their defense division in St. Louis, Missouri. So I came to work talking about a male-dominant industry, especially on the defense division in the Midwest of the United States in the late 90s. And so, yes, I was the youngest and the only female of my team. And then I came to work on the manufacturing floor as an industrial engineer, and 24 years ago, right? And McDonnell Douglas, now Boeing, came to my university as they were looking for engineering talent. And I never saw myself actually working in the aerospace industry. And 24 years later, I just wouldn't see myself doing anything different. And one of the great things about being an industrial engineer is that we can work in many different functions. So I have a very diverse functional background. I mentioned I started in engineering, but I also work as a manager in operations. I've done a strategic work placement. I work in corporate audit, and now I am in a strategy doing business integration. I am part of the Boeing Global Services division, and that's why I am now in Dallas, Texas, where we have our headquarters. And I work creating high-value solutions for our government customers. I currently serve on the National Board of Directors of the Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers. This is the largest technical Hispanic organization in the U.S. I'm also a member of the University of Texas Arlington IMSC Industry Advisory Board, and I was recently accepted into the Dallas-Fort Worth Hispanic 100 Latina Leaders Organization. Very proud to say that in 2018, I was the first Hispanic and the 7th female to be inducted into the University of Missouri's IMSC Hall of Fame. And they actually accepted me into the board of directors this year. And I'm chairing the membership committee. And one of my goals this year is actually to increase the diversity of our members into the Hall of Fame, because when they say first Hispanic and only 7 female in the 50 years of our college, I thought I'm sure that there is many more women that have done extraordinary things than just 7, and I'm sure there's more Hispanics than just 1, although I was the only Hispanic in my class, but I'm sure that there's many more that in the last 20 years have graduated and have done phenomenal things in their field. So I want to identify those females and those people with diverse backgrounds, and I want to be able to recognize them as well. And anyway, so I'm glad to be here. It's a great opportunity, and I look forward to share some of my experiences with the other members of the panel and the audience.
That's just impressive. You know,
Incredible.
I see the faces of our attendees as you share what you have done, and everybody's like, wow. So this is exactly the reason why I wanted to do this, because I wanted to portray women like you that have done amazing things and show the rest of us it can be done, right?
Sí se puede.
Exactamente. Gildra, I'll give you a chance to introduce yourself now.
But that's a hard one to follow. Like, we should have talked through how this introduction could have worked. That's going to be a tough one, but thank you. Thanks for inviting me to this panel. And thank you for just being here. I feel, very grateful that I'd be able to hear from my other panelists, because I feel like I'm myself going to be learning a lot today. But just to share a little bit about myself. So my name is Gildra Jewell. I am currently a director of operational excellence in American Express. I've actually been working for American Express for the last 13 years, 14 plus years. And that's pretty much the whole length of my career. I worked for Procter & Gamble before then, but it was a sort of very short experience. So I've been here for over 14 years. I graduated, as Carolina mentioned, with her from Florida International University as an industrial engineer. I also have an MBA from Nova. And you may be wondering, what does an industrial engineer do at a company like American Express? I get that question a lot. And it's actually very interesting. And it's one of the things that I feel very sort of blessed and sort of lucky about, is that in this company, there's a high valuation or a high appreciation for the kind of skill set that an engineer brings to the table. And so actually, when I joined again 14 plus years ago, I found that there were a lot of industrial engineers, at least here in Florida, in our location in Florida, doing all kinds of different things. And that's one thing that I loved about industrial engineering, and why I chose this over other types of engineering, is that sort of flexibility that you have, and how sort of open it is for you to do basically whatever you want. And again, as I walked into Amex, you had people at different levels of the organization, all kinds of different things with this type of background. And it's a background and a profile that's highly valued. So I've been very lucky with that respect. Currently, my role is project management for regulatory driven projects. But I've had, 7 different roles in the last 14 years of, different sort of levels of responsibility, touching different areas of the organization, mainly doing project management, but different aspects of project management, right? It could be defining the strategy for a project, or executing the initiative. It could be projects related to introducing new capabilities, like I said, regulatory driven, or to reduce costs, kind of like process optimization type of initiatives. So I've been very blessed in that American Express has provided an environment where I have built a very diverse career in a relatively short period of time. So that's a little bit about me. On the personal side, I am a mother of 2. I have a 3-year-old and an 8-month-old. So my days are a little bit crazy, but I wouldn't change it for anything else in the world. So that's me. Thanks, Carolina.
Thank you, Gildra. And I found it interesting you mentioned that people get to ask you, what do an industrial engineer do for American Express? And usually you get asked that question because people associate industrial engineering with manufacturing. Mm-hmm. All right. So I also get asked that question. What is an industrial engineer doing in a company, in an airline? That doesn't match. Well, I have news for you. We match with everything, right? just like you mentioned. So I found that interesting. So last but not least, Marelis, tell us a little bit about you.
Thank you, Maria, and thank you, everyone. And as everybody before me, thank you for the opportunity to be here. today, share my experience with you and what I've learned through my long career. Monica and I went to college together, so we've known each other. So I don't have any adult kids, I should say, but I don't have any kids. But we've known each other for a long, long time. I have an industrial engineering master as well as undergrad. And my career has also, I guess, been mostly in the logistics field, even though I have been working in the other side of the freight forwarding, on the client side of the freight forwarding. I worked for IBM 19 years. In the IBM, I worked in the first, I started working for a team that we were doing kind of projects to optimize the supply chain. So we had all of the IBM brands. At the time, IBM was doing everything. They were moving, they owned the PC business that they later outsourced or sold. And so they had a lot of hardware. So we bought a significant amount of freight. So we had relationship with just about every big freight forwarder in the world. And first I started doing projects that were optimizing the supply chain, understanding how to cut cost out of the supply chain. And then I moved into procurement, where we were buying the contracts from the freight forwarders. So the one thing that why IBM was a good match for me personally is because I think probably the reason why I chose industrial engineering after I did, I don't know, all kinds of different things to try to figure out what I wanted to do. I think I took just about every class that they offer in the university or in college before I decided to go down the IE path. It's because I like change often. Otherwise I get bored. And if I get bored, it's a bad thing, because then I don't really produce anything. So I needed something that kept me interested and that provided the environment where things change all the time and you're able to explore different aspects of the work environment. And not just the work related change, but change in my case, in other aspects as well. So IBM moved me around the world and around the country quite a bit. I lived in Madrid, Spain for 5 years. I lived in Australia for a year. I lived in Georgia and North Carolina, and of course in Florida, all of that with IBM. And that was really, for me, the highlight of my time at IBM, because I work on the business side, on the customer side, where we were looking after clients. So it gave me different perspectives, what it is to do it from the inside of the company to optimize processes internally, and what it was to do it to help customers of IBM. So it changed quite often. And after I ended my IBM stint of 19 years, I decided that I wanted to do something for myself. So right now, at the time I founded my own company, and IBM was going through some transformation. I'm pretty sure you probably heard about the Agile and the Agile transformation, where, especially for the IT world, and IBM, of course, is an IT company, where they use the Agile method to develop software. And what the Agile was used in a lot of different areas of not just software development, but a lot of different areas of processes, and then from a project management perspective. So I got myself introduced to that and kind of learned a little bit of it. Then IBM processes themselves, design thinking and other things. So I decided to go into the learning facilitation field and kind of share knowledge. So my company, it's all about sharing what we know, me and other professionals, other people that have different backgrounds, where we go and literally not teach, but share our knowledge so we can help others kind of gain that advantage of, the experience that you kind of construct through a lot of years of doing different things. And I'm enjoying it quite a bit. I didn't know I had a kink for, I guess, teaching is, it's not the right word, but from standing in front of people and kind of sharing experiences, and that's how I spend my days now. So that's about me.
That's great. So I guess I'll start asking a few of the questions that I have prepared and with my team. So I guess Monica and Adriana, I'd like to hear from you. What have been your biggest challenges and opportunities in your career?
How much time do we have?
You want to take the whole hour? Is that? I'll say let's make it brief because we have more questions, and I would like to give the audience a chance to ask you ladies questions at the end. And I'm pretty sure with all these wonderful introductions that you have made, the people have a lot of questions.
I just can quickly say, I think the biggest challenge was me, right? I think that's one of the biggest limiting factors when you overthink things. And once you jump into something with the training that you have as an engineer, you're trained to fix things, right? You're trained to figure things out. So overall, I think it's been me, and I've proven myself wrong many times, but I do believe that I still have a long way to go. I think every day is a learning experience and we need to experience it, otherwise we won't learn. So this is how I see it and how I basically lived through my career and through my personal life, because that's been an important part of my career, balancing my personal life as well. So yeah, that's pretty much what I think.
Nice. Adriana?
Yeah, I think I will have to echo that, and I think one of the biggest challenges is training myself to believe in me and to be confident. But I tell you, I think throughout my life, I've been so fortunate to have very strong female mentors and sponsors who have challenged me every day, to try to be my best. And they have given me the courage to not only embrace my faith, but also, and my confidence, but also to refuse to allow challenges and doubters and those setbacks to have any power in my life. Because the reality is that we're all going to be facing challenges throughout our life and our careers, right? I mean, that's the reality. But I dream and I work my way through college here in the US, coming from Colombia, South America, and then I made it into the largest aerospace industry and company, and through the ranks and the leadership of Boeing. So, but I wouldn't be able to do that without the help of my mentors and my sponsors. And I think maybe the biggest opportunity is to work for a global company like Boeing, because I've been able to switch careers without having to leave the company. So I mentioned earlier that I started as an engineer, but then I also work in operations, in supplier management, in a strategic work placement. So in 24 years, I've moved also 7 times, and I have worked in all 3 different divisions of the company. And so I wouldn't be able to probably do that in a smaller company, or I probably, if I wanted to switch careers, I probably would have to leave the company and move somewhere else. And so I've been very fortunate to be able to have these different careers under the same roof without having to, lose my seniority and having to leave the company.
That's awesome. So I guess my next question would be for Gildra and Marilis. As a woman, have you ever felt stereotyped as you grow in the corporate ladder?
Oh, I saw your question, and I have to be honest, I had a very hard time answering that. It's kind of hard to know if you've been stereotyped, right? Because I guess that's what happens in people's minds. But the only thing that I would say is feedback that I've received, and I don't know if this is so much about being a woman or being a Latina woman, but very loud, and I'm very expressive. And I like doing video meetings because at least you can see my face and you can see that I'm smiling when I'm talking. But I do know that sometimes the way that I express myself comes across as aggressive. And this is probably tied to your other question that you have, but one of the things that I've learned, and I would say more recently, as I've been sort of in more sort of senior levels in my career, is the sort of self-awareness, self-embracing, and let's just be transparent with people. So now, like if I meet somebody for the first time, like I just got a new team at the beginning of this year, I have a slide and I say, hey, this is me. I'm loud. I come across aggressive. I'm very transparent. I don't sugarcoat things, and just sort of set expectations with people a little bit when I can. Obviously, under some circumstances, you can do that. But But just to sort of embrace kind of who I am. I don't know if that's necessarily being stereotyped, like, oh, because you're a woman, you're loud, or because you're a woman, you're aggressive. I've never really felt that way, but I do think that a little bit of it is just self-awareness. And once you kind of know how you can come across, then you can sort of set expectations with people, or at least kind of be more conscious of how you come across and what you need to do differently a little bit to manage that. But I would say either I'm very lucky or I'm very naive. I've never really felt like discriminated against or looked at in a different way just because I'm a woman. And I think maybe it's back to what Adriana said, is I work for a big company, right? American Express it's a big company, and it's a company that has a lot of values that I sort of associate myself with. And so we live by those values. And I feel people that don't live by those values tend to sort of exit themselves from the company eventually. So I haven't encountered scenarios like that locally, I should say. Again, unless I'm just naive and it doesn't register, but it's possible.
Marelis.
Yes. Well, I think I sort of went through the same thing you went through, Yudra, and trying to answer the question. I was trying to think. Of course, through my career, I mean, it's been a long time. So I think it's something probably that happened more at the beginning, and because I mean, I remember my first job out of college that I moved to, I think it was Atlanta. I was working at a consulting firm. This was before I joined IBM, and I was called to go. I mean, it was a junior consultant, so it was my first trip. I think I went to a client, and one of the senior consultants was a guy, my colleague. He came with me. I was the lead consultant on the project, so it was about doing a simulation, and we needed to explain the results to the client. And I remember the guy, the entire time we were there, never looked at me once. The entire time, he was literally only looking to the guy. So the guy was older, you know, he had white hair, and probably looked a lot smarter than I was, or that I looked. Whatever, it was a guy. The client, everybody was a man as well. And I don't mean this in any other way, that it's just exactly what happened. So every time I wanted to kind of jump in and say something, I realized they were absolutely not interested in my opinion, anything that I had to say, even though I was the one that had actually done the project, was the lead, like I said, consultant. And so I literally just gave up, because I figured I'm not going to gain anything by trying to impose myself into trying to get this client who's the company client, who the company wants to keep happy and satisfied. So if what it takes to satisfy this customer is that my colleague would take the question from me, answer them because he was familiar with the project, and that would make it successful, I'm fine taking a step back and let him be the one. And I think that that's what I really learned, and throughout my career, that, you know, and you said you touch on it, and Jill, around self-awareness. I feel absolutely I don't feel bad at all if I don't have to be even if I deserve it because I did the work. I have no problem taking that backseat and let anybody else take the credit. Me personally, I have zero problem with that. And I think in my particular experience, it's that awareness that I don't need to demonstrate anything to anyone. I know what I did, and the company values me for the work that I did. I don't need to make this person like me more or and so stereotyping because I'm a woman, I don't know if that's a stereotype. It just happened to me. And then the Latina thing for sure. And I don't know how many times I was told, you have so much passion, you know, the word passion, which I think is such a positive word when it comes from who it comes from in certain circumstances. It completely changes the meaning of the word, because it's as if they're already expecting from you to be emotional. They're already expecting and that's a stereotyping. So I think it's more being a Latina woman than it is a woman alone, in my case, being a Latina person, that I had felt that, yeah, if it comes from me, they're not going to take it maybe as serious, because they would think that I'm just inflaming things because I'm passionate, or because I have, you know, because we take things in a more grandeur way. So yeah, I think that happens, and self-awareness, you just have to learn how to live with it and not take it personal. You know, it's just the way it is. So yeah, that's my answer to you, Maria.
I think I like, Marelis, what you're saying in terms of pick your battles, right? Because if the company selected you to be in that project, it's because they believed in your skill set.
Correct.
And the bias that the client had is not your job to try to change that bias. You're going to be just spending more calories trying to do that. So just focus on the work and then the outcome of that project, and then just move on, right? Don't take it personal, because it has nothing to do with you.
It has nothing to do with you. And that's a hard lesson to learn. I mean, it's hard to do that when you're in front of it. So you just have to remind ourselves, what is the objective? What do we want to get out of this meeting? Is that meeting the objectives? I'm good with that, because I came here to do that. So if that's what's going to make it happen, I'm good with it. That's at least that's how I approach things in general. So yeah, thank you, Adriana. I agree 100%.
That's just amazing feedback and advice right there. I personally have felt the same way, and I wonder, what can we do as women to change that we are looked at in that way, right?
I don't think we need to. I think if we conduct ourselves in a professional manner and talk what we believe in and what we're passionate about, I think that will prevail. So I was told many times that I am too direct. I didn't really I've never really understood that, because I'd rather have somebody talk to me directly. Maybe that's my mindset, than going around the bushes and giving me a story that takes me forever to figure out what you really want to what you really want to tell me. So I actually embrace that, and I have been extremely fortunate that most of my management team has been male, in the sense of a very supportive male, and actually enjoy the dynamics that a Latina can provide. A Latina that, you know, gives a different angle of things. And so I actually embrace it, right, to get things done.
You know, Monica, and what's interesting too is when we go through our cultural diversity training at Boeing, we look at the different cultures within the geopolitical areas in the US, and then we see how different areas in the country addresses things differently. And so, for instance, like the Pacific Northwest, people tend to be a little bit more peace before truth. And then on the East Coast is more truth before peace, right? And people tend to be more direct. So it's more, it's not about gender or whether we are Hispanic or a different, you know, or for a different race. Is more about where in the country you're from and how we address things, right? And some people might say that actually Hispanics were not very upfront. And so it's just interesting how people, I think it has more to do with personality than gender, or than, you know, what our background is. Right. And so, but it's interesting. I actually prefer people that are more direct, so that I know what I'm dealing with, right?
Yeah. 100%.
That was just great. Pretty sure that there is a lot of people in this panel who are not showing their faces, but are learning a great deal from what you are sharing. So thank you again, ladies, for sharing your wisdom. The next question I have here, Monica and Gildra, can you tell me what advice would you give to the young women as they grow in their career?
Would you like to go first?
Sure. Then you're going to say something that is going to be really hard for me to follow. So yes, please. So what I would say is be more vocal about what you want. I mean, that's something that I sort of learned myself. Sometimes, you know, and I don't know if this is a woman thing again, but, you know, we tend to sort of do a good job and try to do the best that we can and expect things to just come to us because we're doing a good job, right? And sometimes, you know, in order for things to come to you, you actually need to sort of speak them into existence, and you need to, you know, share them with people, right? for them to help them happen. So again, kind of like that whole leveraging your network and things like that. So what I would say, to younger kind of women or just younger people coming into, whether it's the workforce or stuff like that, is just not be afraid to speak up about, what you want, because usually people will tell you, what it takes to get there. Like, otherwise you're just sort of flying blindly. So I would say that's one thing. And then the second thing would be to be very open to doing different things and sort of raising your hand and exploring. I feel like the more that you sort of go up the ladder, if you will, in your career, the less flexibility you have to really just sort of try different things, because either you've already developed like a certain experience or a certain skill set and you're sort of seen as the expert in X area, right? And it makes it a little bit harder for you to sort of move and do something completely different. I feel like earlier in your career, it's a lot more easy to, move around and explore and hopefully find your path. And again, I'm very lucky that I've worked for a company where, that has enabled me to do that. And I've, been sort of doing different things in different areas. But I've also seen people that sort of get stuck doing the same thing kind of, for a very long time. And then when they want to change, it's a little bit harder because, again, you've already sort of typed as, this is your expertise or your, the area that you're kind of good at. So those will be the two things, just being very open about what you want and then being flexible and open to doing different things.
That's actually a fantastic lead-in, because as you were talking, it resonates in me as well. Understanding yourself and who you are and what your likings are is really going to drive you to really be successful. Because if you get stuck in something that you're not really excited about, you'll really have a difficult time. Everything just will be much more difficult, right? When you have something, you do something with your heart, it's going to facilitate a lot of what you do. And the second thing that I could suggest or offer here is be prepared, right? Don't expect anything from anybody. Just expect a lot more from yourself. And in that, we got to make sure that we're prepared, right? When we're up for different things in our life, be it professional and personal, everything has to sink in terms of making sure that we've done our due diligence and investigating and understanding, and how does that jive from what I like and what I don't like. There's certain things that we have to still investigate, right? And in the process, we might find out that that's not something we want to do. That's fine. It's not a failure. It's a learning experience. If we keep that in our mind, I think it'll facilitate a lot more things.
Those words just hit home, at least for me. So thank you for sharing, Monica. Don't expect anything from anybody, just a lot more from you. That there just was perfect.
Yeah, and the fact of the matter is, it's not just that we're women. It's not that we're Latinas or Latinos, or right. We have a responsibility with ourselves, and that's what needs to be in the forefront.
Agreed. So I guess the last question that I have here before we go to the audience, Adriana and Marelis, is if you could go back in time, what would you do different in your career?
I think one of the, so let's see, I went to get my master's degree right out of college too. So for two reasons. So one, because actually Boeing pays for our education. And so I wanted to take advantage of that. And I wanted to get my master's before I thought, that I would engage in other activities that would later then either prevented me or become an obstacle for me to get my my master's. And so I'm glad that I did, because then in a way I'm glad that I did, because when I was 28, I became a manager, and having an MBA helped. but at the same time, you know, the people in my class were older enough and they had more years of experience than me. So they were able to contribute more to the class and all because of the years of experience that they had. And so now looking back, I think if I were to, for instance, do like the executive MBA, I'm sure that the what I would have gained from that would have been probably a lot more now than what I did when I only had a year of experience, right? And so I think that would have been one of the things that I would have done differently. And that was to probably wait a little bit longer before I went to get my MBA. Wait until I had a little bit more professional experience.
I would second that. When I get asked, should I do the master's right away? That's exactly the same answer I give. I don't think so.
And I tell you, and I actually jumped to get my doctors, and then my mentor said, you know, Adriana, you're going to become way too expensive too young, and so you just better wait. And it's time for you to don't focus on yourself anymore, but actually to focus on the community. And I'm glad that I did that, and I waited about 10 years before going back and start working on my PhD. And that's actually how I got involved with SHEP in 2005, and it was because of the advice of my mentor. So having a mentor, I tell you, is one of the most powerful things that we can have in our careers.
So before we go to Marelis, Jackie has a question in terms of a mentor. So Jackie, I invite you to ask Adriana the question directly.
That would be great. I have 30 years in manufacturing, but I've only been an engineer for 2 years. I graduated in 2018. So I'm a baby engineer, despite having adult children. So I need to find mentors to help me now. And it's a much different dynamic going to college later. But what did you look for in a mentor, and how did you pick and choose them?
So I think there is a difference between a mentor and a sponsor, right? And I think it's important to understand the difference. I think, you know, you pick your mentors, the sponsors pick you. You talk to your mentors, the sponsors speak for you. So your sponsor is your advocate, right? And so I am now also the mentor of others, right? And the mentors that I have are the people that I can reach out to whenever I have different questions about my career, about next steps. I don't necessarily now meet with them often as I did when I was younger in my career. I had a lifetime mentor, and this was one of the first female, and she was of a diverse background, but she was one of the first female vice president at McDonnell Douglas, and she was also in engineering. And we happened to be in our masters together. And what I was looking for her was trying to understand how to navigate a big company like Boeing. And she came from GE, right? And so she had tons of years of experience. And it was really helpful for me to really understand then, you know, when they tell you where you want to be in 5 years, where you want to be in 10 years, I don't think I would have been able to do that on my own because I didn't really know where I wanted to be, you know, in 2 years, right? But so she helped me understand that, you know, she asked me the question, she asked me to identify a leader in the company that I admire and identify what I admire about that particular leader. And then we together then study the career of that particular leader, not only his leadership style and the traits that this person had, but then we also look at his career path. And then we saw how this person actually moved from different functions and how he actually moved from different sites to be where he was at the time. And so I realized that if I wanted to be where I wanted to be in the future, and my goal was to become a vice president, then then I needed to gain experience in different functions. And for that, I needed also to understand the different positions of the company, or the different aspects or business units of the company. And that also required for me to move and be able to work at the different sites and the different business units. And that required mobility. And so that's one of the reasons why I have changed functions many times, and I have relocated. But I wouldn't be able to realize that, at such a young age, if someone didn't walk me through all that.
Thank you.
And I'll be happy to, be a sounding board for you if you ever would like to talk to me. You don't need to, your mentor doesn't have to be in the same company perhaps, or the same industry.
That'd be wonderful, because I'm a little lost just yet, trying to figure out how to do that.
Okay, Jackie. So in the chat, I'm going to give you my my LinkedIn profile so we can connect through LinkedIn.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Okay.
There is the magic happening. You
Yes.
know, that's one of the reasons why I love to do this, right? Getting the people connected and helping each other, because I'm pretty sure nobody here can say that they have gotten to wherever they are without somebody giving a hand and say, come on, I'm going to help you, right? So
Yes.
it's just fantastic to see the magic happening right here, right now. That's one of the things that I personally get excited about. So Marelis, tell us now, if you could go back in time, what would you do differently?
Actually, a very hard question to answer, because in my case, I don't know if this answer is going to be helpful, but I'm going to give you the answer that I'll give myself. So what I would do differently is nothing, except for one thing, which is to work in getting to know myself better sooner. Because if you became more self-aware, if you really knew more about you, then you would be much better prepared to handle all different kinds of situations that would present themselves. And that's just life happens, right? So you don't know. Somebody told me recently in one of these facilitations we were doing with one client, I was working with a colleague of mine, she's a psychologist, and she said that we were talking about limits and how we should know our limits, and it's so important to know that. And then somebody in the audience said, well, you don't want to say that you don't know something, because it's going to make you look bad, and then your evaluation is going to suffer, because you're going to acknowledge in front of others that you don't know this, right? So you're going to show your weakness. And we're so, I guess the Western culture teaches us what success is and what it is that we cannot do. For example, show weaknesses in front of others that could judge you as, you're not really fit for this because you're weak at this. And I hope I'm not losing you, but my colleague told me it's not about you showing your weakness in front of others. It's about you knowing you have them. Because if you do, then you know how to work around it. You know how to really tap into where your strengths are. So it's not about me telling you, I'm not really good at this. It's about me knowing that I am not. So if I were to do something different, I wouldn't change anything that I did, because I've enjoyed quite a bit the career that I've had and the experiences that I've had. And like I said earlier, it gave me enough of change to really, truly enjoy the journey. But I would have worked much faster and much sooner into getting to know those things, because it's just as important to know what you like and you want. Adriana just said, I wanted to become a VP, so I kind of knew my path to get there, what I needed to do. I offer that it's just as important to know what you don't want, so that you really build a path that avoids that. So that's what I would change. I would work on getting myself to know myself better, or know myself sooner than I did, just because of, sometimes it's hard to know that when you're 20, right? It's kind of those things that happens with experience. So I hope that answers your question, Maria, career-wise.
Hard to know that now.
Marelis, but you know what too? Our priorities also change with time and age, right? As we mature, I think, what were priorities for us when we were 20 changed when we were 30, and then changed when we were 40. So It's part of our journey. It is part of our journey.
Wonderful learning, and I offer Adriana that because of that, it's and I offer to everybody that wants to take it as an advice. It's we should not be afraid, because we all are when you're young, to make decisions, because we always think of decisions as such a permanent thing, and it is not.
Mm-hmm.
You can make a decision, you can choose, because there's a forgone value of something you didn't choose for choosing something else. So there's value there, and we tend to really struggle making decisions sometimes because you're thinking of the forgone value. I offer that it's okay, you choose, and if you didn't like it, you choose again and again and again. And the beautiful thing about this is that you can choose as many times as you want to. So not just go with your gut and choose, and then give it a shot. And if that at the end is not what you really wanted, and it was all about, then you learn more things about you.
Exactly. Exactly. That there is a saying that my mom instilled with me since I was young, and it's in Spanish, and I'll translate, but she always says, perder por aprender no es perder, which means, there's always a learning. So you're not losing when you think, oh my God, I did this, oh, what a loss. It's not, because you're always learning. So you have to be, if you keep the mentality that there's always going to be a learning, whether that's not the path that you wanted to do, or whether the outcome is not the one that you were anticipating, you're always learning. And then if you learn that, hey, this is not really what I wanted to do, well, good. Then now you don't want to do that anymore, and then you just change courses and you do something else. But there is a learning out of it. So there's always something positive that comes out of every situation.
It's the baseline for our career, right? The career we decided to pursue. Otherwise, if we didn't have learnings to exercise, then we had no job.
I agree.
Nothing to do.
That's just amazing what you girls have shared. So thank you so much for the wonderful teachings and wisdom. I like what you say, Adriana, de perder por aprender. I heard it in English. I never lose. I either win or I learn.
Right.
Exactly.
And learning is winning.
That's right. So we have some questions here in the chat from our audience. Sandra has a couple of questions here. And Sandra, I saw you a little bit ago. I invite you to turn on your camera again and you ask those questions yourself. And who are you asking that question from? Nice to see you. Now you have to unmute yourself because you are on mute.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
No, perfect. Hi, sorry, I just don't have good lighting, so I didn't want to hurt anybody's eyes. Well, happy Equal Day, ladies.
Yes.
My name is Sandra, and the last question that I remember was for Adriana. So I read the book Lean In by Sheryl Sandberg, which actually helped me a lot in my career. And in that book, she says that a mentor and a mentee is a symbiotic relationship. So it's not like you asking people to be your mentor, but you kind of find that connection, and then you find your mentor in your career or outside of outside of your company. How do you think is a young professional can find their mentor? What do you think are some key aspects that you would see in that relationship from as you're looking for a mentor? I don't think that people should just ask other people to be their mentors, but do you think that she's right in saying that there should be a symbiotic relationship and that you have that connection and that person will help you?
So I think absolutely it is. So I got two types of mentees and mentors. So I am part of a formal, so as leaders at Boeing, we have to be mentors, right? One of our goals is that we have to be mentors. So I am a member of a formal mentor-mentee program. And as a member of that program, I get assigned to be the mentor of a person for 6 months. And the reason for the period of time is because, again, you don't know if that relationship is going to last very long, but at least you get to help that person for that period of time. Now, if the connection is there and if you would like to continue, you know, mentoring that person, then you can continue with that relationship. So that is one way, is through the formal mentoring program. I mentioned earlier that I'm involved with the Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers. We have a lot of professionals that we hire through SHEP. And I've known a lot of females since they were in college and now are actually Boeing employees. And so when they transition into Boeing, they call me one day, they say, hey, Adriana, you know, can I get on your calendar? Can we have a conversation, right? I got this opportunity, and then we established this relationship. And then I always tell them, hey, let's have a conversation once a quarter. I'm interested to know how you're doing. And then we just kind of like establish this mentor-mentee relationship. And then we're now meeting every quarter. And I have about 8 ladies that I do this with, right? Now the ladies and men, because I like to have a diverse group of mentors for myself, right? I don't want to have this group thing. But this one lady that I mentioned has been my mentor since the beginning of my career. She happened to be in my master's class way back when we didn't have Facebook, we didn't have all the social media. I'm talking about the late 90s. And again, she happened to be in my MBA, and we were asked to introduce ourselves into the class. I went first. I always like to sit on the first row so that I can pay close attention. And then when she introduced herself, I was like, oh my God, you know, this is the new vice president that just joined the company. Well, she asked for my help only because she thought, well, she's a recent graduate. She knows how to do projects. She's more into these, you know, school stuff. So she asked if we could work on our project together. And she kind of like took me under her wing anyway. And she's been my long-lasting mentor for 24 years. She's already retired, and we still talk every 6 months, about every 6 months. And she introduced me then to another lady who was one of her mentees, and then became not only my mentor, but my boss twice in my career. And this lady retired last year, and still my friend and my mentor, and not only my mentor, but also my sponsor, and who has helped me grow in my career. So to answer your question, I think, you know, when I have conversations with them, I think they learn from me. I learn from them. So it's not all about me, it's about their growth too. I mentioned one of these ladies I worked for. I was her chief of staff. So she relied heavily on me. So when we were having these conversations, she was also relying on me on helping her on things that I thought, you know, she needed to change or do differently. And I rely on her to do the same for me, right? And so I think we changed hats in the way that she was my boss sometimes, and then she was my mentor. But then also when it came time for her to put the name of people to be promoted, then she became, you know, my sponsor. And then she put her name down, or my name down, for potential opportunities so that I could go farther in my career.
Yeah, so I actually work for Accenture, and I'm part of SHEP as well. I actually found my dream job, which was Accenture, through SHEP. I wasn't a citizen yet, so I couldn't apply to any Boeing or NASA type of jobs, although I would have liked to. But Accenture was
Not
like,
yet.
you know,
Not
yet. Yeah, so, and we have a career counselor program similar to what you have. And in that program, I usually recommend also people that when you have a career counselor, try to get on a project with them, because not only, to your point, what you said, right? They become your mentor, your bosses, but because they have such a close relationship to you, they also become your sponsors, and they advocate for that promotion, or, you know, they help you get to the next milestone. And yeah, that's been great. Like, I think that you can kind of like, I was trying to like see like what kind of like key aspects do you see in a mentor when you're like, oh, I found my mentor, like this person likes me, and now I'm just gonna like, you know, like keep going with them because they're kind of already taking me under their wing. So I might as well just, you know, continue this relationship.
I don't think I necessarily look for a person that like me. I want to be with a person that is going to be also honest with me, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So I remember at one time, you know, when I was in manufacturing, one of the superintendents was also my mentor, and at one time, you know, he told me, for instance, you know, Monica, you were talking about being passionate. You know, I wanted to be on top of my tasks, and at one point he said, Adriana, you need to calm down. You know, we have so many things going on. Check with us maybe once a week, right? Or maybe once every 2 weeks, prioritize, right? But I'm going to be literal. He said, you're in our asses too much, right? So you're becoming a pain in the rear, right? And so instead of becoming help, I was becoming a pain. I'm glad he told me that. And I'm glad that he was straightforward and he told me that. And I was able to talk to him about things. And the third time I brought something to his attention, he said, Adriana, mute point, don't worry about it. Because men are the majority more practical than women, right? And so I'm glad that I was able to get that perspective too. So I'm not necessarily looking for someone that likes me. I'm looking for someone that can give me guidance and someone that I can get a different perspective from. So that's what I'm saying. I'm not always looking for a Hispanic female mentor. I'm looking for someone that can give me different perspectives, because I don't want the group think in my board of directors either, right? In my group of mentors, I want the different type of input so that I can actually make a good decision about what to do next.
Yeah, I gotta say, you can be a well-rounded person that has different backgrounds and inputs in your, you know, career going forward. Yeah, no, I like that advice, and I love it. I love everything. So thank you. And then the other question was these soft skills, right? That us engineers don't really learn back in school. Do we think that we should do something about that? About like, you know, teaching these soft skills and more events or more awareness for like young students or even little girls to get into engineering. So, you know, like I was asking about any initiatives that you ladies are doing to drive more women into STEM careers.
And I would let some of the other ladies, I think I've spoken enough, and I got answers, but I would let some of the other ladies maybe address these.
May I ask you to repeat your question just to make sure that...
Yeah, because I think there were two questions that she asked.
Yes. So I guess we can just go with the first one, right? Like, so here in this chat, we talked about a lot of soft skills, right? That those are important to have, but it seems like you start learning them once you become a first-year engineer. Do we think that we should like teach these soft skills early on in your career as an engineer? Or do we think that we should have like more awareness of these soft skills that, you know, engineers should have in order to propel their career? So that was my first question. So I guess we can go with that one.
If I can answer that one quickly, I think the soft skills really are developed based on your personal development, not having your job in mind particularly. I think that parallel in working on yourself, understanding yourself, as the other colleagues have said, is absolutely critical. And that would cover in general the soft skills, because that would, you know, make you understand your dynamics of where you work well, what you like, what you're going to be more interested in doing, right? I think that needs to work in parallel as you develop your career, because the technical side, that you can't get away from that one, right? It's technical sense, and this is why we've studied so much, and some of us have gone to MBAs and more. So I think that has to work in parallel. I think I've answered your question.
Somewhat.
More
What I'm
Monica,
asking is that, like, for the soft skills, right? Even like that awareness to know yourself. Is that something that we think that we should learn in school? Because, like, what I'm saying is that those are things that we should be more aware of and that we don't know. Or to, like, I like the point that you said, and that was coupled by someone else in this room, that you should know what you know and know what you don't know. And it's okay if you don't know something, as long as you know that you don't know that and you're confident. And I think that I actually learned that when I was doing a project at Google, and somebody said, I don't know what you're talking about. And I was like, oh my God, Google people don't know. Like, so like, I was like, so it's okay if I don't know. I'm like, I felt so relieved and a weight off my shoulders, because as a first year engineer, I was always anxious. Like, I didn't know everything. And like, I had imposter syndrome. I didn't go to like, like a very sought after school. Like, how am I here? I was the only hire from my undergrad. So I had like a lot, like, to work on. But I wish, like, to your point, I had mentors, and I had like, more awareness of knowing myself better early on when I was in my first year in engineer, because some of us are immigrants and our parents are not here, and our parents are working full time. So who's telling us all of this,
So Sandra, I think the organizations like this are the ones that help you through the workshops to learn these soft skills. Because I don't think you're going to go to college and then pay credits to actually learn those soft skills.
Yeah.
But it's actually through SHIP or through ISE that you're going to be attending, or panels like this, right? So I think you're doing the right things by becoming members of these organizations and then attending these panels where you're learning these things. But I don't think you're going to be learning these soft skills in college, where you're, when you're want to be an engineer. So
exactly,
like Monica is saying, right? I mean, you're going to go to engineering to be an engineer, and I must say too that once you become a professional, right? Yes, you need those soft skills to excel in your career, but I'm gonna, my personal point, and then ladies in the panel, tell me what you think, but the soft jobs are not going to be the ones that are going to take you to the C-suite. I mean, you need to understand financials. You need to understand your company. You need to be very well versed in your business acumen, in speaking the financials of the company. But you're not going to get to the C-suite doing the soft stuff, right? You need to understand who you are. Yes, you need to be confident. You need to have the courage, all that. But is actually the working in the P&Ls and then working the tough jobs and then working the hard projects, the ones that are going to help you excel in your career, not the soft jobs or the soft skill functions that are going to help you excel.
Right.
If I can add just, I guess, Sandra, and again, this is all sort of, each of us will answer based on kind of their own experience, right? But what I would tell you is I agree and disagree, right? Yes, there are things that you can do to learn more about yourself, right? Like I just recently did this leadership journey, and we did a bunch of, it's called self-discovery tools like Myers-Briggs, StrengthsFinder, things of that nature that sort of help you understand a little bit more about how you are, who you are, how you come across, what you enjoy, things of that nature. And that's helpful, right? But I also agree with Adriana, and I think with Monica, some of that you just have to develop over time through experience. And when you are very junior in your career, you actually have to prove yourself. You have to earn that seat at the table, and you do that through your technical skills, through your delivering on your results, on kind of meeting your goals, things of that nature. And then, eventually sort of all of the other things just kind of come along, if you will. So I agree, there's no course that you're going to take that is going to sort of check the box and all of a sudden you have the soft skills. Like it's really not going to work out that way. But there are things that you can do, again, to raise that self-awareness so that you come sort of more better equipped more holistically, if you will, into the workforce, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I've been doing self-development since before I graduated from college. What I was saying is that I've noticed this type of like lack of soft skills in engineering. So I wish there was a class or something like a speech class, right? Or writing class, and letting engineers know, hey, you're smart, you have the technical skills, but what's going to set you apart is your communications like skills. Is the fact that you can effectively communicate, write an email. I mean, I have worked with engineers that cannot write an email for the life of them, you know? So, and on top of that, I started a marketplace that connects third world students in South America with students from here in US to provide them with affordable and accessible tutoring, because that's what I did when I was in school, because I was working through school, so I couldn't afford like $35 to $90 an hour. And what I noticed when I hired these tutors is that I can only hire the ones that have the soft skills, right? They're all really smart. But if I don't have the ability to teach, then I won't be able to, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, they won't be able to be tutors. And for that reason, I just, you know what I mean? Like, I think that I'm like, you know, like as I see them struggling and these kids are so smart, I'm like, I wish there was a class that was like the speech for like engineers, you know, like something like that in school, because I think that would like set them apart. You know, sometimes you have people that are really smart, but they don't have these like really soft skills and they cannot really work in groups. And, you know, I just, you know, just thinking of like ways to help engineer students now.
So Sandra, I know I'm not the panelist, but I've heard that Toastmasters is very good in order to develop those speaking skills.
Yeah. No, thank you. I'm writing all of that.
Networking is also very important throughout the realms. I mean, just this network here, you have a vast amount of different personalities and backgrounds. The more engagement you have and you come out of your shell and expose yourself to different things, the more versed you are, and that's what develops your life, your soft skills, life, right? It's just about living life, right? And not putting yourself in a bucket or excluding yourself from everything else, or just focusing on one thing. I think that's where we start limiting ourselves, and that's where it causes problems.
Yes. No, I totally agree.
All right, so I'm gonna excuse myself because we have taken a little bit more of the time that was allotted for this event. I know a lot of you have
talked too much. No, I'm sorry.
I think we all talk too much. I guess the event was too short for everything that we have to share. I guess maybe what that means is that we need to host more of these sessions. So I guess this is the perfect feedback that has been communicated without even being mentioned. So thank you so much for the ladies that shared their wisdom and their experiences with us. And thank you so much for the people that attended and wanted to give us an opportunity to get in these forums and, you know, I guess get together at least virtually and learn from each other. I think that's some of what we miss in our day-to-day lives. We get so wrapped up with the jobs that we forget about the network, right? We forget about the building relationships outside of our jobs, right? So that's one of the very good things of this. So thank you so much again for joining. So before we go, I want to ask everybody, the 25 of you that are still here, can you please turn on your cameras? And at least I always like to take a picture of the group that attended. It doesn't matter if you think you don't look camera ready. Guess what? You look camera ready because this is very informal. This is from us for us, and one at least for me, I like to show myself the way I am. You know, no masks. So yeah, see, this is so much better now that we are looking who's behind that screen. That is just amazing. I see so many wonderful ladies back there, and so men supporting us. So it's great. So let me do the screenshot here. So to the count of 3, you look at your camera and you give me your best smile. Hey, 1, 2, I see Huguito. There we go. I like it. So let me do it again one last time. Hold on. I promise this will be super fast. And again, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. Let's go. 1, 2. There we go. It's awesome. So hopefully we get to do another one of these, this time, the next time in person. You know, I told you we've been doing this online because that's the way of the world nowadays, but I personally look forward to doing one of these in person and getting to know you. So
oh, thank you, Carolina. I really have to drop because I hear my son crying already, but thank you so much. And anybody who wants to reach out to me via LinkedIn, my name is very unique, so you should be able to find me very easily. And I more than happy to connect with anyone. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
My last name is Franco, actually. My last name is Franco, if you'll see me in LinkedIn. So it says Mendez there, but last name is Franco.
Franco.
So I will share your information with the attendees in case anybody wants to reach out to you and ask the questions. So
sounds good.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Maria, thank you for hosting. You did a great job.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I was nervous myself.
Your questions.
We pulled it through.
You sure did. I'm sorry, Adriana, what was that?
No, I say thank you all for attending and for your questions.
Sorry.
For the next, I hope we have a little bit more time because I definitely did have a couple of questions, but very useful. Thank you so much for the invitation. I truly enjoyed myself.
All right. Thank you, folks. Good night.
Good night, Adriana. Take care.
Ciao.